League of Women Voters of Elmhurst normally meets the fourth Thursday of the month, but because we have to be flexible, so this got moved. So thank you all for being on top of the emails and realizing that this was moved. So tonight we're having our former state representative, Jenn Ladish-Douglass, who will talk to us about the SAVE Act, the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, which is a goofy name for this. My personal opinion. But I did print out what the CEO for the League of Women Voters in the United States said when it was passed in the House. Today is a dark day in politics. The passage of the SAVE Act in the U.S. House is a direct attack on the fundamental right to vote and a dangerous step backwards for our democracy. The SAVE Act was based on misinformation and fear-mongering rather than facts, as there's no evidence of widespread non-citizen voter registration or voting in state or federal elections. And it goes on for quite some time, which I'm sure Jenn will cover tonight. So, thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to come out tonight and share with you. I recognize so many faces here tonight and was proud to represent the district these last 2 years. Unfortunately, I've got some sick family members and had to step back, but my heart is still here. It's still with the community, still with our work and our legislation and working for the people. And I was happy to be able to talk to you about this act, as I believe it is a very scary place. There have been a lot of things going on in DC that are concerning for the people across the country. I've had friends directly impacted by some of the policies, and everyday people would be negatively impacted by this act should it pass the Senate. I would like to start out by telling you that this is a QR code if you would like to pull up the act. The portion that I copied here for the QR code is directly from the congressional record from the House vote. So after the act itself and the language of it, you will see the comments by both parties, members of both parties, and what they had to say about the act. There's a lot of fear mongering in it. There's also a lot of data about the hundreds of thousands of voters who may be disenfranchised by what this act will do if it passes. Now, 4 Democrats voted for this bill. Thankfully, none were from Illinois. So we can thank our congresspeople for that. We have 2 senators who I encourage you to call and keep calling. It's what I've been telling everyone. On every issue you see that you like or dislike, call. It is really important because they track those phone calls, they track those emails, they track the bills you're calling about. And when you do call, give them your name, your address, your phone number, and your issue. They need your address to verify you're a constituent. They need your phone number to call you back. And if you want them to write you back, send them your email too. So I cannot emphasize that enough. Do not be disheartened as things move forward, but please keep calling. So let's talk about this act. There is a lot of language out there about voter fraud. But if you look at the data and you look at the numbers, there really isn't that much, okay? So what people with this bill, what they are trying to do is force every person to prove that they are a citizen when they go to register to vote. Now, what does that look like? I registered to vote when I was 18 years old, okay? But if I move, I have to update that information. I have to go back in, change my address. And if this passes, I have to go in person. And I have to prove that I'm a citizen all over again. So I have to take a birth certificate. My birth certificate does not match my name. So guess what? I need my marriage certificate. And if you're divorced and you change your name, you need your divorce decree. And if you were, let's say, adopted as a child or as a teenager, you might need the adoption records. If you are the victim of domestic violence and have changed your name entirely, you may need a birth certificate and court records, and then say you were married. You have to prove with a chain of documents who you are and that you are a citizen. Now, in the very beginning of the act, it talks about documentary proof. It discusses that documentary proof includes the Real ID Act, okay? Bringing your real ID. Now, I have one. I went through the trouble. I got my mortgage. Most people don't have a passport, okay? Maybe 51% have a passport. Sometimes people let their passports expire. They will not accept an expired passport. Okay, I've been through this. You can't use that, they don't accept it. Now a lot of people will change their documentation when they get married, when they change their name, but some people don't. Sometimes people lose records, like we did in 2011 when our house flooded. We lost everything. Everything. And we had to go back to, for example, the court that had our marriage certificate. We had to write them a letter, send a fee, wait for the appropriate document to come back, okay? So it is a lot of work to get that documentation if you don't already have it. And one of the things I think that we need to do if this passes is get out in the community and start educating people about what they need and make sure they have that all together. Because this is going to make it very difficult for people to register and update their registration. The bill also says that identification cards such as federal, state, or tribal government identification can be used, but it has to show that you're a citizen, okay? It has to show that you are a citizen by birth, by naturalization, and it can cause problems if someone was born overseas, if they're in the military, if a person in the military moves their residence but they're deployed, they can't update their documentation because you have to go in person. This is one of the problems with the law.
Jen, this isn't moving, is it?
No, I'm not
Okay,
moving. This
all right.
is it so that you can look at this with me. Another thing that this bill does is it changes the name of the Federal Election Commission. It turns it into the Election Assistance Commission. Okay, let me see. It will take away the ability for people to register by mail. Because if you mail it in, they will require you to make an appointment to come in person. That will take away the ability of college students to register if they turn 18 while they're away, because they may not be able to go home to register to vote if that's where their residence is. It will be harmful for people with disabilities. It will be harmful for the elderly if they move, like my mother-in-law did a couple years ago. She moved, she could not walk, she needed assistance, she could not drive. The bill does talk about creating accessibility, but it doesn't say how. It's very vague. And this is one of the issues with legislation that I've learned through serving. Sometimes being vague is okay, sometimes it's not. When it's vague, that means that the entity that will enforce this law, once it's passed, if it is, they get to make the rules. They get to decide how this is implemented. And that implementation might not be what the legislators anticipated when they pass a bill. They could engage in additional work that could make it difficult for people to register. So accessibility is undefined. It doesn't tell you how they'll do it or what they will allow under certain circumstances. Another issue is that they will make it difficult for same-day registration. You will have to bring your birth certificate and proof of citizenship. Unlike just your license that you live here and you'd like to register same day, you will have to go through the same proof. And what that also means is election judges and individuals at the polling place will need to know how to identify valid documents, which is going to add burden to the states because they will need to teach people how to figure out whether that identification is valid or fake. And they'll have to do it for every state. They'll have to know what birth certificates look like. They'll need to know what licenses look like as you move, find proof of moving and residency, which is a lot different than what they do now. The big issue, another issue with this, is that it would subject election officials to criminal fines and up to 5 years in federal prison for simple mistakes. Local officials, if they fail to check those documents, or they make a mistake, or they think they know that a person is a friend or family member and that they're a citizen, and they don't follow the rules that are in this law or the rules that are made after, they could be subject to penalties. The SAVE Act also requires those federal agencies to respond to citizenship data requests. They want people to be verified, so they will have to contact the federal government to check social security numbers, to check immigration status, to check if that person is indeed a citizen, and that those documents are valid, which could subject those individuals to immigration issues. If they're naturalized, if they're in the process of becoming a citizen and haven't registered yet, somebody takes their documentation in, they think they can register, but they're mistaken. I've met a lot of immigrants who thought they could vote or thought that they could register, but they could not yet because they weren't citizens yet, even though they had an appointment. And this could subject them to problems because they could be subject to penalties for an honest mistake. There's also a 24-hour turnaround for that data that they might request, that the election officials might request from the federal government. They're supposed to respond within 24 hours. We don't have that set up right now. There's nothing set up. There are no employees, there's no office, there's nowhere for people to send those requests at this time. And if this passed tomorrow, we don't know whether that would be done by the time our next election came around. It would be a bureaucratic headache, in the words of some of the members that I talked to. It would also in Section 6, it clarifies that the SAVE Act would not supersede, restrict, or otherwise affect the ability of an individual to cast a provisional ballot for federal office under existing state law. And it will not change voting rights in states where you're allowed to vote in municipal elections, such as in New York, where they allow people who are non-citizens to vote in local elections. It also doesn't allow any state to be exempted from the terms of the SAVE Act. So they are taking away election authority from the states, which is the opposite of things they've been doing with other laws. They said, give it to the states, let them decide. Okay. So I know that I'm being very short about all of this, but it's a short bill, but it has huge implications because it has great costs for the people. And you have to prove that you're a citizen in order to be able to register to vote, to update your registration, in order to get the documentation. You may have to go to where you were born, which you may not even know who to ask anymore. Maybe the offices that you thought you knew about are gone. Documentation you had is gone. Marriage certificates get lost. Birth certificates get lost. And it's going to be very costly. The criminal penalties are concerning for individuals who might make an honest mistake. And our military members who are serving this country could be kept out of the voting process because they're taking away registration by mail, registration online, and they're forcing people to come to an office while they're closing offices like Social Security offices across the country. And this is especially impactful for people in rural areas. They don't have access to as many facilities as we do in cities and in Chicago and in larger areas of the country. And they may not even know that there's an issue. Another thing I'd like to point out is when we were in Springfield, our friends on the other side of the aisle constantly talked about requirements being placed on municipalities and on our counties without any funding. And this bill does that. It says that our state election offices, they have to establish a program in order to verify citizenship and an ongoing determination of citizenship for people who register to vote and who are on the voter rolls. And they have a proactive duty to remove people from the voter rolls. But they're not putting any funding, there's nothing in this bill about funding to help pay for that. So this is something they're laying on the states, they're laying on the American people, these extra costs. So that's the bill. It's only a couple pages long, but it's got massive implications, especially for women. Many of us don't have the same name we were born with, and adoptees don't, and divorcees don't, and people who immigrate sometimes change their names. I have friends who've changed their names when they became citizens, and you have to have that track record of proof, which can be very burdensome, unlike how things are today. So, are there any questions?
Can I just make a comment?
Sure.
Well, I just found this out when I went to get my real ID, about the marriage certificate thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had read that in the things about it, but when I was married, which was to me it's not that long ago, but in reality it was a long time ago, my minister said, this will always be valid as your marriage certificate at church. And so I just assumed that I could take it anywhere and have it approved. But no, for the real ID, it had to be a marriage certificate from the county where you were married in. Fortunately, I was married at Glen Ellen, which was the same county.
Okay.
So my husband and I went there and got it right away and then brought it back and it was okay. But if that had been another state, I would have had to, it would have taken longer, because like you said, it probably would have had to be mailed to me.
Right, because they have to have original documents.
Yeah.
They're not going to accept a photocopy.
And by the same token, when I got my real ID, I had let my driver's license expire. It was during COVID. So the driver's license wasn't valid. The passport had expired, so that wasn't valid. So I had birth certificate, but I had to send a letter to Cook County. And it took a couple weeks and it was $50.
Mm-hmm.
All told. I mean, with for the fee and all that.
Right,
$50.
right.
They didn't like my social security card, they said it looked too old.
Yeah, give me a 15.
Then I would need to get a new one. So we went to the social security place before they all got up, I mean, they're terrible now. Well, they're trying hard, but I'm just saying, before they, you know what I mean, and got a brand new social security card. Took me all day to get my real ID because of these places.
All the little rules, and I'm sure some people, especially shortly after the pandemic hit its height, when people were able to go back to get their real IDs, they probably didn't have everything. Sometimes people have to go back because they have a photocopy, or the document they have is too old. Maybe it's 100 days old instead of 90 days old. And it can be really difficult. I got married in another state. I had to look up the form to request it, send a letter to the probate court, which is where it was held, wait for it, make sure it had that stamp on it, because what the minister gave us was not sufficient to prove that we had been married. And I guard that document because I know I need it. But my dad lost my social security card when I was a kid. And so into college, I had to figure out how to get a new one. And we didn't have the internet at that time. But I had to go to people at the school to figure out where to get it and how to get it. And then I know then when I had to change my name, it was not fun, because you have to get a new social security card and update it and send proof. So there's all these steps of proof, but yet this bill wants a birth certificate. It doesn't want, they care about what your name is now, but they want everything from your whole life. And they make copies of it and they keep it. That's something else in this bill. They are supposed to keep copies.
Who keeps it?
The Election Commission. They have to make photocopies.
The federal, the FAC, the EAC, the election assistant.
Let me find it.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
What a waste.
Yep.
Who thought this was a good idea?
Mr. Roy Chip of Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Roy Chip.
Yep.
Great job. Yeah.
So it's very vague. And I reached out to Congressman Caston's office. I live in South Elmhurst and he's my congressman. And he sent me some one-page sheets about the bill, which I'm more than happy to share. If you'd like me to email it, I can share that. But according to his documents, it could cost Illinoisans over $657 million just to register to vote, because about 43.4% of us do not have passports in Illinois. And you know, people wait until right before the election to try to register.
Yeah.
They won't be able to, and it will disenfranchise voters.
So what's the likelihood that this will pass in the Senate?
I don't know.
Having just heard tonight that apparently there was a bipartisan bill agreed to in the Senate about limiting the president's ability to do tariffs, but it won't go, I mean, it's not gonna happen, nothing's gonna happen with it because it will go to the House and they won't even bring it up. But given that kind of fact that that's happening today, I'm hoping the Senate would see how terrible this is and not
Right.
pass it.
Right.
So do we have any sense of how likely it is?
I do not, but I checked with some people in the congressman's office, and the best I can say is that the vote was on April 10th, and it's been sent to the Senate, and typically the procedure would be that bill would be assigned to a committee, and a committee would have to review it, potentially make changes to it, and then the Senate, it would be presented to the Senate for a vote if it passed in committee. If they make changes to it and it passes in the Senate, then it would go back to the House, okay? But a lot of times, I know I saw this here in Illinois, there were a lot of bills that would pass one chamber but not move in the other. So it's possible it won't move, but I have no sense of what that is, and that's why I encourage people to keep calling. If you have friends in other states, in other types of districts, I encourage you to call your friends and ask them to call their representatives, their senators, especially for this bill, because that's what is needed. I know that when a bill comes up, and as a legislator, you're not sure how you're going to vote on it because you may not like some of the language, but you like other parts of the language, having those constituent calls is really important, because it lets you know, hey, I've had 500 people call me, or 1,000 people call me, or email me and say they don't like this bill. And then when lobbyists come to you, or other members come to you and ask you about the bill and say, hey, will you vote for this? It's a great bill. I love it. It's gonna do this. You say, well, unfortunately, I've had all these constituents call and write, and they don't like it. So I will be voting with my district. You know, I might agree with you on these parts, but it's not enough for me to give you a yes. So, you know, like I said, those calls, they're very important. Yes.
Do you, by any chance, know, I sometimes have trouble finding this, what the number of the bill is for the Senate?
Oh, well, it was passed over as HR 22. It is, I don't know because, hang on. I don't even know if they've assigned it a number.
Okay. Because when you call, you've gotta know that.
Right.
So they did roll call votes. The first time it failed. They didn't have enough votes on it. That's the bill itself. So basically, it's been received by the Senate, passed the House, and it's been received in the Senate, but I do not see any bill number. And honestly, when I called to ask about the bill, I gave them the House number.
Okay, thank you.
So that's what yes.
What's the best way to phrase your phone call? I know it's usually answered by their assistants and everything. They don't want to hear a big long, so do you just say, I'm in favor or I'm not in favor of this bill? Do you have to give a reason? Do you have to give some kind of background, just your constituent information?
Yes, when I've called since January, I call and I say, this is Jenn Ladish-Douglass. I'm a constituent of Congressman Caston. I live at, list my address, my phone number is this, and I am opposed to HR 22, for example, and I ask that the congressman vote no. That's it. If you want to say more, of course you can, and explain why, but that's really at the heart of what they need to know. I don't like this bill. Yes?
Quick question, how many times can you do that?
As
Every day.
you can, yes, you can
Right?
call,
You wake up in the
you
morning?
can call every day. You can, and
I'm doing it.
you know, I would say you don't need to call on the same bill every day, but when that bill gets assigned to committee, call again. When that bill is up for a committee vote, call again. And there's something called witness slips, which I'm sure some of you know about. On the federal side, they probably have the same thing. It is a document that you can fill out and file online, usually, at least here in Illinois we can.
I don't think they have, do they have this on the federal?
They might, I don't know. I
I've
haven't-
never seen it. I've never seen it on
Yeah.
the federal level. And not even every state has that.
Yeah, but if they do, I would fill those out.
Yeah.
I know I encourage people here as well, but call. And when they come up for a vote on the floor, call. Because it's important to know. Yes, ma'am.
It's easy to do a witness slip too, because you can create an account and then just go back to that account with whatever the new bill is. It maintains your name and address and phone number and all of that stuff, so that may take a couple of months to do.
Right, and those, just as an aside, at the state level with witness slips, they're really important. They are important too, because every time we have a committee hearing, those witness slips are read. For example, House Bill 1, we're hearing today, and this is how many people filed a witness slip for it. This is how many people voted or filed a witness slip against it. This is how many people are neutral. And then they will hit the highlights. Like if the bill relates to gun violence, they will say the police association is for or against or neutral. The sheriff's association is for or against or neutral, etc. They will hit the people most impacted by the bill and tell you who was filed. And then, 400 other people have also. Yes, sir.
Senate Bill 128.
Oh, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Way to go, Jen. Senate Bill 128.
The League of Women Voters of Illinois is encouraging everyone to call their legislators every Friday. And explain or tell them what you are unhappy or happy about. I haven't had a lot of luck getting through. Especially the senators. I've just emailed Representative Caston just because you can't get through there, but at least, and I've emailed the senators too, but the senators, their recording hangs up on you. It says try again later. Try again later, and then hangs up,
But they do respond to your emails.
yes.
I mean, it's a form letter, but you do get a response saying, I've read you, I've got your concern, blah, blah, blah. And the bad part about not, when you call another senator in another state, they don't want to hear from you. However, if you get a zip code from another state for that senator, you can maybe get your information through to that senator.
Mm-hmm.
Because they want your zip code
Okay.
when you call.
Okay. Well, they also have multiple offices. And so you can try
And the state league is encouraging you to call the Washington office. I don't know why. I think it would be easier to get through to
Your local.
his local office.
How many of you in this room have a smartphone? I have no financial, involvement in this at all, but there is an app called 5 Calls. It's the number 5 and the word calls. You can add it to your phone.
.org.
And it's amazing. You put in your zip code and it brings up your senators, which numbers to call them at, and your congresspeople, as well as all of the hot topics. And if you are unhappy, perhaps today, one of the topics is oppose funding cuts for NPR and PBS. I can click on that and it will give me a script. So for the lady who was asking, what do I say? You can use it to whatever degree you want, but it makes it very easy to contact your senators and representatives. 5 calls.
the number 5.
The number 5.
The number 5.
And all the calls.
I just looked.
In your, add it as a helpful. I wish I had money involved.
Yeah, there's someone who.
Talk about how the cost to like municipalities and stuff. There's also going to be, like, if all of a sudden everybody has to get copies of things, there's gonna be, those places, offices are gonna be inundated with requests and may not have the staff to handle it in a timely manner. So it's almost like, get your stuff now, because once if they pass it, it's gonna be crazy.
Well, Illinois will be even worse just because there's 106 different election authorities. and everyone has their own, fiefdom. And so there are rules for DuPage that Cook County doesn't. I mean, you know, you can't take pictures in the election area in DuPage. But, you know, Cook County goes, what? That's so.
Yeah.
How can I tell when the milestones are occurring? How do I know when it's going to commit? How do I know? I mean, how do I know the different dates to call on before each one?
They should be online. When you can track bills online,
Okay.
and you can also get alerts about bills. I'm not sure how to pull this up again, but there's actually a button here. I'll show you. So right here, there's a button that you can push that says get alerts. So you can get alerts about specific bills. You have to create an account, and then you can get alerts about
It'll let you know this bill is going to committee today.
I don't know specifically what it'll say,
Okay.
but it will alert you to changes or what's happening
Okay.
with the bill.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I have a question. With this bill, what's going to happen with people who register voters?
Yeah, us.
Us.
The rest of us
The League of Women
who are
Voters.
already registered.
No, we register
Registrars.
registrars.
Yeah.
The registrars.
The bill does not talk about that. So it's vague, which means they might make rules about it if this passes, or they might not. They might leave it up to the states to decide. However, it does talk about certain, let's see, a violation of the act, and it talks about election officials who register an applicant to vote. It does not talk about anyone else registering people to vote. It's very limited in its language, and it only speaks to that as related to federal elections. So, and again, there's criminal penalties listed in here.
And follow, would we have to then make copies of all the documentation? Or it doesn't say?
I don't know for sure, but it talks about, hang on. There's a new paragraph being added to a section for state or local election officials to record the type of document that was presented as documentary proof, including the date of issuance, date of expiration, the office that issued the document, and any unique identification number. So they have to keep that and keep that information. So if you help register people, you might have to literally take them to the election authority, because we can't register online. Well, if this passes, we won't be able to register online. We won't be able to register by mail without also going in. You can send it, and then according to this, you'll get a notice that you have to come in with your documentation.
Which means we won't be registering in the high schools.
I was just about to ask that. When you go to York High School, you just register folks online?
I'm sorry.
No, we have paper copy.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you know, registering someone today, all I needed was 2 forms of identification. One of them had to have the address on it, the other one had to have, you know, information.
But
You don't even have to have a
But they
picture.
swear
They swear that they're a citizen. Well,
Yeah.
Right.
an 18-year-old isn't gonna be carrying citizenship papers, I mean.
Well, our service members don't carry those
No.
things when they're deployed. My grandfather didn't have his birth certificate when he flew. I mean, you don't take that with you. When they lived in Japan, they didn't have those things with them.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like, you just don't take it. I don't carry mine around either. So it's problematic and it makes it harder. It will make it very, very difficult for people to register, yes.
I'm concerned about the lack of funding and the vagueness, because I've retired from banking and we had to verify people's identity all the time. We actually had to take regulatory tests every 3 to 6 months on how to do that. So there's not gonna be any education or funding for that. I mean, there were rules.
There may not be there's nothing in here
there's
about
nothing
funding.
there. So that's gonna be up to people to decide, and that's gonna take a long time. And to put it in place is gonna take a long time too. So, I mean, the onus being on the election official, it's gonna be pretty scary, because, I mean, we used to have to take tests about how to detect fraud on a driver's license or any other document. I mean, they're gonna be responsible for that with limited training and very vague rules.
Right. And it does not
Also, the
describe
retention
that.
of documents, I mean, that was all laid out, so everybody knew exactly how long to keep it. It just sounds to me like it's the same thing with the abortion, you know, they don't know what the implications are gonna be.
Right.
They're rolling something out that's gonna have a lot of horrible effects. And the last thing is, I just hope that they don't try to deter people from helping organizations from helping women to get this documentation. Like they do in certain states, if you try to help somebody to vote. I think in Georgia, to bring people to the voting, to vote, you know, they were trying to criminalize that.
Right.
So there's so many issues here that people are gonna have to really stay organized. These groups are gonna have to really organize to find out how to, you know, if this passes. how
If
to
it
do
passes as is,
Yeah.
it will be one thing. If it passes with changes,
Yeah,
perhaps they'll be better, but I don't know.
it's hard
It's hard to say.
Yeah, with all the Republican majority so far.
Right, that's part of
That's
what
the
makes
way
it
they
difficult.
vote.
Yes, ma'am, purple.
I have one question, which she touched on a little bit, and then one comment. Is there a feel among Democrats in Congress about whether this will pass in the Senate?
From the limited number of people I spoke to, I don't know. I haven't talked to our senators about it. I suspect that it would be better to call their office and ask, because I did not talk to Senators Durbin or Duckworth about it. But all of our Congress people voted no. And unfortunately, the Democrats do not have a majority right now. So it puts the vote in a difficult place, and especially because some members of the House who were Democrats voted for it. There were 4.
Sorry, how likely is it that some of the Dems will step out of line and vote for this in the
I
Senate?
can't say.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know them, you know, from other states. I don't know what they're thinking. I don't know how they're leaning. I think that, as with any legislation, we need people to push a bill or speak up about a bill and educate the public and make sure that they know what the bill could do. And it's not just fear mongering, it's a reality, because it says certain things that you can see down the road what it will do. You know, you can see it sometimes, it's very obvious that it's going to this would make it harder for people to register and to change their registration. You know, if we buy a new house, I have to prove I'm a citizen, even though I'm registered, even though I have a license, unless I have a passport.
Along those lines, my comment is, do the Republicans not recognize the potential unanticipated consequences of this? Because if you look at who they're disenfranchising the most, in the military, enlisted people tend to vote Republican, And rural communities tend to report Republican or vote Republican as well. So, I mean, do they not realize what they're doing?
Are you
It's
assuming
possible.
intelligence where they're?
It's possible. I hear you. I think there's a lot of focus on things that should not be issues, in my opinion, right now. And there's a big focus on election fraud, which has been something they've talked about endlessly for years. And that is part of what has created this. And, you know, even though there were a lot of court cases and court losses related to that, they are still, you know, beating that drum.
It
So-
seems to me that it's a problem, it's a solution looking for a problem on the part of the Republicans. The number of people who are not citizens who vote is minuscule. It's like .000
Yes.
something. So we're making this, you know, big process costing lots of money and disenfranchising voters to capture how many actual voters, you know?
And it might cause some people to not bother registering.
Yeah.
Because they'll say, well, wait, I have to have all this stuff and I don't know where it is and I don't have the money.
Could lawsuits be filed in any of these cases?
Well, people
Once it's
sue
law.
over anything. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
possible.
The National League has filed a lawsuit against the executive order that Trump wrote, but it's specifically this. So LWV did file a lawsuit against the executive order, but it's not against the act.
Yeah, the House bill.
Because it's not an act yet.
It's not a law yet.
Right, it is, yeah.
And hopefully it won't be.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any people like in the Senate or any groups that you know at this point who are making it their business to say what's in this act and really publicize it and organize against it? Do you know?
I don't know specifically.
Like
I see a
these-
lot online.
Pardon?
I see a lot online, but I don't know of a group that is specifically focused on this.
The state or the National League of Women Voters has taken a strong stance
Yes,
saying
they
that
have.
they are
Right, but it should be,
against it.
really what it should be is the senators there should be a group of senators
Right.
that should be speaking out, because that's where it's gonna go. Right now, it doesn't matter what the House
Like the
does, it's
Senate
over with.
person,
Right.
And until you get the senators to sit up, like, you know, they were sitting on the steps of the Capitol the other day. Sit there and start talking about what's in it, because that's the only way it's gonna get out there. Because this is really, you know, the chances of it really impacting Illinois, because if they leave it up to the states, we're in the state where we have a governor that's not gonna go for it. You get down to the southern states where those people in the rural counties who don't have a say because of the dominance down there, that's where the problem's gonna be. And they're gonna feel it more because the record keeping and different stuff like that is not always as good as it is up here in a big city.
But aren't they taking away the state's control over?
Well, but
those?
they said that in there, if they have to pay the money, they're gonna have to let the states have control because the money isn't gonna be funded. So if they can't fund it, I mean, it's all up in the air, but I'm just saying, if they rely on, say to the states, you have to fund this, okay, you're not helping us fund it, so we don't have the money to do it. How are we going to do this? And if you can't do it, it's not gonna go anywhere, right? I mean, it's gonna sit in one lawsuit after another.
Right. But, you know, if nothing else, they'll need staff. We will need additional staff to implement this law. And even if they go to the federal government for information about individuals to verify their citizenship status, the bill does say that they can't charge a fee. The federal government department or agency cannot charge a fee for responding to a state's request under that paragraph to verify. But you still need staff, you still need phones, you still need internet, you might need additional people to help find the information and collect it and store it. So, and, you know, people may not want to register people to vote because of the fear of criminal penalties for a simple mistake or for not realizing something was fraudulent or what have you. I mean, it's pretty serious that they want to do this, even though it might be a mistake. Then you end up in court. Court is very expensive, defending yourself from these types of claims. And I think I know I've seen our president likes lawsuits, so there's quite a few.
Yeah.
So, yes, ma'am.
Why did those 4 Democrats vote for it?
I can't answer that. I don't know.
There was one from Hawaii, one from Texas, one from Maine, and a woman from Washington.
Wow. Yeah, a
And
woman.
and her name, Marie Gluskamp Perez.
Guess what? She's gonna have to prove herself.
Yes.
Yep. I would call her office, call their offices and ask what their justification was for voting for this and why they thought it was better. And the QR code that I put up, there's floor debate in this document. So it's the bill, but then after that, you can read the comments from the legislators and what they said. And there is data in there where they're talking about numbers and people and saying things I won't repeat here, but there's a lot of good information in there that explains some of the thought process by the people who were there. So it's interesting, but all legislation is subject to debate. I mean, there's a lot of debate about different issues, and it's interesting to see, but this one is going to be costly if it gets through. I don't want to have to get all my documents pulled together again if I move, for example. But there's a lot of fear about immigrants, and it's upsetting.